y'all. I originally wanted to make this for my newsletter because I write a lot in my newsletters to help people and support people. And I realized this would probably be a good introductory thing to put in the Start Here playlist about the perspectives that I come from, not only in my newsletter, but in my videos in general. So my background is a very strong background in science. But before that, I was in a very culty religion. That's how I was raised. But as soon as I turned 18, I got out of that. And then I've spent the rest of my life trying to figure out what all of this stuff is. But I spent my whole life without entheogens. And I was very science-based. I have a science background. I have degrees in science. I taught high school science. And I came out of that eventually realizing science has so many limitations and it's not the be-all and the end-all. And while I do come from a science background on the Amanita muscaria mushroom about the science of it, how it affects our bodies, the studies, and making sure that the use of it, the fixing of it, the preparing of it, all of that we are using science and being safe. But once I started using Amanita, it opened up a whole new world to me. And then once I started using psilocybin, of course, that opened up even a larger world for me into magic and the unexplainable things. I went from a non-spiritual belief system to a very, what some people call spiritual, I just say is now a lot of the more unexplained parts of life that the mushrooms show me when I trip on them. I have a video on the mushroom voice and why I started this channel, and that comes from the Amanita side of things. What I write about and my perspectives now are what the mushrooms have showed me about our mental unhealth and unwell-beingness and our stress and anxiety and how we got here, and returning to ancient practices of our ancestors. This has nothing to do with beliefs, religion. This predates all of that and has to do with the movement of Earth, the other planets around the sun. And I have learned that there are reasons why these practices existed. And up until very recently, I thought it's because they just didn't have anything else to do. They were bored, so they just looked at the sky. But now that I have had very high doses of both this mushroom and psilocybin, they have shown me the actual energy coming from the sun, the hum of the universe, the sacred geometry that is built into all of it that comes from the sun, and the interconnectedness of the other planetary bodies and the entire sort of grid of this particular solar system, but this grid of our solar system connected to the universal system of language, of sacred geometry, and how knowledge and energy support us through all that. Put into Earth terms, though, we're still earthbound. We still have human physical meat sack bodies, and they need support, and there's ways that they function that are very ancient, that were written into our bodies for thousands and thousands of years. We have only been disconnected and separated from that beginning 2,000 years ago, and it's just been this slow evolution away from that. That is too short of a time for our evolutionary DNA bodies to change and adapt to that very recent change. We are built on, our bodies are built on, and our DNA and our genetics are built on practices that have happened for thousands and thousands and thousands of years that include using entheogens on a very regular basis and using these mushrooms in conjunction with celebrations of the solstices and equinoxes. All those are the solstices are the longest day of the year and the shortest day of the year by sunlight in the northern hemisphere, and then separately, differently in the southern hemisphere. And then the equinoxes are the equal points in between the two solstices. So the winter solstice is when the sun rises and sets very rapidly, and it's the shortest sunshine day of the year. Summer is when the sun rises and then goes down and sets in a more elongated cycle, so it's the longest day of the year. This is in the northern hemisphere. The equinoxes then are going to be the halfway points between those two. These are not religious. This is a scientific phenomenon. It's not even science. It predates the development of science. This is just how the sun, in relation to the earth, rotates, and you can look up in the sky and you can see it. I speak then from a standpoint of how our physical human bodies have evolved for hundreds of thousands of years in conjunction with these cycles. The science is slowly starting to catch up to this based on the fact that the Earth's angle to the sun's angle to the Earth, the rays that bounce off and into our eyes actually affect our health, and early morning and late evening exposures specifically. Then sunlight on our skin helps to create melanin, but also increase melatonin, which is a hormone. Our eyes and then the pineal gland are involved in the production of melatonin based on exposure to the sun. And these are only the very beginnings of the actual measurable things by science right now. Just because we haven't been able to measure it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. But what high trips have told me is that there's much more coming from the sun, and that there are reasons that our ancient ancestors would then have celebrations around the sun, or in some cases worship. But worship in modern day means to put above, and we are below, and we talk about how subservient we are. I'm saying worship as in celebrating, as in honoring. And that is where I come from and what I speak from. And the mushrooms have told me that the reason why we are so broken today is we are too separated from the earth, and many practices that I talk about and I educate about. The first half of my book on dosing Amanita and what to expect is about the mushroom, the science of it, dosing it, how to be safe, how to use it, protocols, and all of that. But the second half of my book is about all of the things that the mushrooms do to you once you start taking them. One of which are the practices of celebrating these cycles of Earth and the larger cycles that Earth goes through as it revolves through a year around the sun. But those same cycles we go through as humans collectively as a species on Earth, because we are unique in that we have this large brain. We came out of the trees and started walking upright. We are very unique in having opposable thumbs and the way our brains have developed because of our walking upright and the connection of our brain to our opposable thumbs, and what that intellect does to us spiritually, psychologically, emotionally, and as earth-based species that sets us apart from the others, and why it is so important that we hang on to the practices, because we can outgrow our intelligence and intelligence ourselves away from the things that actually serve our mental health. And those things that keep us safe and grounded are not just the celebration of the earth and cycles, but there are many other practices that we need to get back in touch with that our ancestors have done for so long that the abandonment of those practices are making us sick. And those are the things I talk about. You can watch the videos here. I go into more in depth in it on amanitadreamer.net. And then I go into more detail in the book. But if you consume my content on a regular basis, especially my newsletter, you will get a regular commentary on where we are at the point of my publishing that particular newsletter. It comes out twice a month. And I talk about, here's what we're dealing with. Please don't forget to do these things. Ritually, these are the things we're talking about right now, this time of year. You can get the book if you want to learn all of it at once and consume it all at once. And this is basically what my content is. It's Amanita content. It's me talking about high dose psilocybin, but then it's also me reminding you, hey, don't forget this particular practice is good for your mental health. Don't forget this one is good for your mental health. The algorithms do not push our content anymore. They are going to a pay to play model. And if you don't pay to get it pushed out, then the people who follow us and subscribe are never going to see it. So that's why we are pushing newsletters, because that way we just show up in your inbox. But you got to remember to check it and open it and read it. But I still make content. YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. I still put it there. I am starting a Substack, but the newsletter is probably the best way. Welcome to my world and to my sphere, and I hope that my work serves you. I love you, beautiful people.